Hi there, Cosmic Family. My name is Jehlial, and tomorrow, November 27th, the moon moves to Pisces, and on November 29th, it is going to make a contact with Saturn that same day awakens of its retrogradation, becomes direct. Saturn is going to go through for the last time Pisces. From the degree 25. So people that have planets at the end of every mutable sign, Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, of course, Pisces, they are going to feel this perhaps with greater discomfort because they are going to receive this with squares, tensions, and people with planets in Pisces in conjunction. So for everyone in that house of the natal chart, we are experimenting an ending that is going to open the doors for a new form to express ourselves in the world, with the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune in the degree 0 of Aries that we are going to talk about later. Saturn is the planet associated to structures, boundaries, spiritual maturity, the constructions, the solid constructions that we could generate from in the symbolic plane and also in the literal one. The consolidation of a goal could also be something linked with Saturn. Pisces is the sign of the invisible but perceptible, the subtle words, the energy that influences the plane of the matter, that responds to our thoughts, emotions, and then the decisions are going to be the act of concretion in this plane. But Saturn here reminds us that it is not just only what we do, but also what we are sustaining internally that has vital importance. Pisces is a sign associated to what in Kabbalah we call the worlds of emanation. I think that this is the word in English. This responds to the dimension of potentialities that are not manifested yet, are not revealed yet. So everything that emerges from our imagination, it is something that we could bring in here. It is what is enabled in this plane. But as the same as desires, imagination could be conditioned by experiences that we have transited. We could generate barriers of beliefs or forms of thought that could distort it, both from an aspect that apparently is positive as much as an aspect that is negative. We could imagine painful situations, things that are generating fear, or we could imagine that we are the Messiah and that we came here to save the world. Both polarities, both extremes are going to impact in our reality in a very imbalanced way. The first one because this generates emotional states that are pushing us away from our inner peace, and the second one it is because it is creating perceptions that are far away from reality and that are not helping us to build what we came here to build. I do think that it's important to clarify that we have an invitation, a calling to awaken and to develop the inner Messiah. Many people came here to assume important roles of leadership, but believing that we came here to save the world is a fantasy of the ego, without mattering which is the position in society, which is our position in society. It is true that the greater impact that we have over other people, the greater responsibilities. I am saying this because Saturn also represents figures of authority. But wanting this unique savior to free ourselves from the labor that we have to do is a childish projection that has to be dissolved. This is the function of Neptune, dissolving, that is in conjunction with Saturn a while ago. So this is what truly enables the birth of a new humanity that can be conscious. Because it is this projection, this fantasy, the one that keeps manifesting figures of authority that are not in awareness, that are not capable of assuming the positions that they have. And the people want to believe many times that fantasy because they don't want to deal with their reality, with a reality that begins to manifest from the inside to the outside, and that responds actually to this calling, to this profound alignment between spirit and matter. We cannot annul any one of them. If we are annulling the spiritual plane, we are losing ourselves in materiality, in the superficial things. Or if we only are connected with the spiritual, we are we are evading, we are making this escapism of this plane, and we are not assuming our labor in here. We are not at that point as a society, but I trust that we are moving towards that. In any case, we are here to make our contribution because the redemption of the world doesn't depend on one person, but from a critical mass of individuals that are willing to align themselves with their own path and to do their part, initiating by their own spiritual growth that can be expressed in the matter, in their reality again. So many of the learnings that we have transiting with Saturn since it entered in here in 2023 were very related with connecting with our true dreams, for example. It is quite difficult to talk about Saturn without mentioning Neptune, because connecting with dreams requires for us to dissolve the limitant barriers of our conditionings. I mean, there could be people that think that their dreams are not possible, as much as bringing ourselves to reality regarding experiences that we could imagine and that they are not actually connected to the true possibilities in the matter, and therefore they are not also connected with the sense of our soul. I mean, if a person dreams about being a painter and it is not that what the person came here to do, the paths are not going to be opened. Things are not going to flow. But in other cases, there could be this desire that does respond to the soul, and the conditioning is the one that is blocking the path, is blocking the person. It is also important to clarify here that we have to try things. I mean, for many of us, the path is about experimenting and, experimenting things until we find that those things that are connected to the sense, and not seeing what didn't work in the past as a failure, but as a step that approached us to our purpose. And when we recognize there are opportunities that actually are aligned with oneself, we have to invest energy in a sustained way, detaching from the immediate result. This is something very linked with Saturn, because the process is the mastery. The path is what leads us to develop maturity and to eventually bear the fruits. Other lessons had more to respond with an inner coherence. I mean, beyond how other people can perceive situations in their mask, this was about learning to decide and to taking seriously our inner guidance, our intuition, and to develop that inner authority that is not the ego, is the divinity, the divine expressing itself through us. An example very related with this could be learning to restrict energy that we are giving towards the outside when that is representing a renouncement to the voice of the soul. Sorry, even if from the outside that is perceived as an act of kindness. I mean, this is what many people call sacrifice. I believe that sacrifice, this is something that I explained many times before, but sacrifice is actually sacred office. It is something that we do as a channeling of higher purposes on earth. I don't use this word to describe acts that we could do from conditionings. Where it is configured a distortion of love as giving without boundaries to other people. That is not also without boundaries, because that is going to produce an energetic drain that is not going to allow the person to use that energy to reequilibrate, rebalance other areas of his or her life, or to build projects that are not only important for that person, but for all of us. So this kind of programming ends up generating relationships where we attract people by need, the need of being validated, the need of being loved, but through relationships of dependency, patterns of codependency, whether because we could be depositing responsibilities to others that they shouldn't assume, or because we are taking burdens of other people that they are not, taking responsibility of their own decisions or learnings. So the shadow of Pisces could be believing that empathy is trying to avoid pain to everyone, even if we are interfering in their processes or preventing them to growth. In the end, that is not helping, actually. On the other side, when we are investing excessive energy in solving problems of other people, it is very, very common that is born from a evasion from inner imbalances, from the fear of being alone, from wanting to repair on the outside what we need to solve inside. So different is to make our contribution through whatever thing we came here to do, and still we will have to put boundaries. I mean, even if we are aligned with paths that have purpose, there is energy that we have to restrict, to take care of, so we can do that in the best way possible. Other aspect linked with Saturn is also know how to limit behaviors that belong to escapism. The most literal way linked with the shadow of Pisces could be, addictions to substances, to alcohol, or could be other ways of escapism. Social media could be, a way of addiction nowadays. Or, if you are developing a project and a challenge is presenting, wanting to, run away and abandon the project because the person doesn't want to deal with what perceives as a conflict. It is like wanting to live in an ideal that it is responding to a fantasy of reality. And even as I was saying a minute ago, giving too much to the outside could be a form of evasion. There are people that are too much focused in others, in giving in others to others, with the expectation that those people can be differently, can behave differently. So they don't have to change on the inside, or they don't have to face the fact that those people perhaps are not in capacity to offer what they would like to. So the experiences with Saturn, could represent challenges to assume greater responsibilities, but also could be, the manifestation of blockages, restrictive situations, the lack of something in some area of our lives. And yeah, they could be painful and frustrating, but they are not happening to prevent us from moving forward. On the contrary, they are impulsing growth in an area where we need to develop maturity. So limitations and blockages could indicate where we don't need to walk anymore, or in other situations, challenges could push us to develop resources and capacities, or to understand that we need to do in a more responsible way, and to stop, putting the guilt in something external. Other expression of the low energy of Pisces is victimization. So for many of us, Saturn could have, taken us to the limits with certain circumstances to transcend this mechanism that is not repressing the pain that we are feeling. It is about transiting whatever thing we need to transit, and to put the focus in solving things, to trust that we can transcend certain challenges, and that if they are appearing in our path, it is because they have a reason. But also in its opposite polarity, other people, perhaps they had to learn to be more flexible, to be less rigid, because being authoritarian with ourselves, with other people, treating ourselves with harshness, with lack of compassion, that has nothing to do with unfolding this inner authority and growing in it. In fact, this is something that lack many psychopathic leaders in the world that continue to sustain the old paradigm. I'm going to close this video here today. Thank you, everyone. See you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.